Hey, welcome back to the 9th episode of Love, Growth, and Narratives. I'm Tiffany.
And I'm Freddy.
I want to start this off by letting you guys know if you hear a different sound of my voice this week, it's because I have COVID for the 4th time. So please excuse any coughing or, a different tone to my voice. I'm trying to get through this the best that I can. It's important to us that we keep going with our podcast each week. Freddy, also known as Frederick, is about to do a little bit of housekeeping. Freddy, it's over to you.
Yeah, we've really been encouraged by the listenership to our podcast, be it on Apple or Amazon Audible or Spotify or YouTube. And we've noticed, just on Apple Podcasts alone, we've had 364 listens, which we really appreciate. That means that we're making some good content over these past 8 episodes going into our 9th right here. And so we really appreciate the support, and we hope that we're doing good work with our discussions. One of the things we wanted to bring up was that less than half of those who listen are subscribed. Now, I'm sure everyone may have their own reasons, but understand that when you do subscribe, it gives us more support because it pushes that algorithm to push that out to more people, be it on any of these platforms and as well as YouTube. And so if you would consider subscribing, we would appreciate that. What that does for you is that every time you open your podcast app and one of our new episodes has launched, it comes right into your feed. You don't have to search for us. And so it just makes life a little bit easier for all of us.
Yes, so please take care of that. Get that done and hit those buttons. Today, we're going to talk about growth. And the area of growth we're going to be discussing is around our jobs, careers. Mm-hmm. I know that I personally have grown a lot in how I think about my job, which is a teacher. I grew up watching everyone putting most of their time into their job and then looking forward to, retirement and some type of pension of some sort. The idea was to work really hard, make yourself available, be dependable, all of those great things you want in an employee. But a lot of times it was at the detriment of your personal life and your family. But I had that mindset going into teaching. I feel like that's a profession where it's depending, especially where you work. And if you work in an area that is, for lack of a better word, less fortunate, you're needed a bit more in many different ways. You're needed by the school to put on events more because you don't have the same level of parent participation. Families need the teachers more as like an additional support system. And we just don't have the same resources that some of the other schools have in wealthier areas. And so my mindset was that if you choose to go into this profession and you especially work in certain areas, you should be giving of yourself. You should be available as much as you possibly can and work as hard as you possibly can. And that's what I did. I spent sometimes upward to 12 hours at school, which put me into late at night. I've been at school on campus as late as 10 o'clock at night, and I thought this is what I need to do, especially when I taught kindergarten, where you have to do so much more for the students. And I didn't understand teachers who didn't give that kind of time, especially to this population that I serve, especially those who had their own children in schools that were really enriched. I felt that it was the teacher's job to really give all of themselves. And I did that for a long time, and I suffered. I had a lot of amazing benefits of that, right? Students who are now adults reach back out to me, and I still have an impact on them to this day, and they ask me to do things. But I think that I failed in my own life, my personal life, because I put school first. Everything I did, everywhere I went, I was thinking about my job. And if I went on vacation, I wanted to buy books and come back with them, or trinkets for my students. It just was a bit obsessive. And I don't think I really realized that until I started burning myself out and until I got into a meaningful relationship. And that's when I realized that I can't let that take over my life. As well-meaning as it is, and as much accolades and wonderful progress that I made with the families, I needed to have some kind of balance, because in order to put your best foot forth, you need to take care of yourself, which kind of goes into our self-care that we did last week. And so I've grown in that way where I understand more now why many teachers don't give that extra beyond the bell type of dedication, because they have their own families, or they just have them themselves to take care of. I mean, you can't and should not burn yourself out like that. I had this mentality like, I want to be a boss. I want to be a mogul. And I really do see running a classroom as kind of being your own boss and having your own little business. And I thought, what else can I do? I wanted to start this business. I want to go back to school. I want to do a million things. I want to be some big mogul who has several things going on at once. Hustle, that hustle mentality. You got to be a hustler. And I realized that life is way too short to put that much time into one area of your life. And you also realize that you're only so valuable in those areas to your job. I think there are a couple of things besides like now having a family and having a parent that needs my care. I realize that I can't put all my time at school. One of the things is we had a colleague that passed away, and the way some people kept moving, I understand that the world still turns and we still need to go on, but the way it happened was like, did this person matter as much as we thought they did? I mean, we just kept pushing. There were things that I don't even want to repeat that occurred that really told me, wow, why would you dedicate so much of your time to this place that is going to move like you almost never existed? And then there's other times where I really gave of myself, especially during the COVID period where we were working from home, where most people out there would be enamored with some of the things that I did for my students that I didn't have to do on my own time and my own dime, but were scrutinized by my superiors. And it really made me feel like, wow, I'm not being valued for what I'm doing. I mean, I think the students valued it, and I know the parents did because they were vocal about it. The students were as well. But when even though what you know is you're doing is right, and someone in particular, your superiors, make you feel like what you did was not of value and that you shouldn't have done it, it makes you take a step back.
Yeah.
Because that beats up on you a little bit, along with realizing that when, you pass away or you get sick or you're out sick or you're out for whatever reason, which I have been several times, that things just, you're not as valuable as you thought you were. You're much more valuable in your own personal life and to your family and your friends. And I think that that's a bigger place to put all your, eggs, as they say. I think it's really important to evaluate how much time you put into your job and you not identify as that job. And I know that's hard. It depends on what you do, right? There's certain careers. If you're a doctor, it's probably really hard to separate, for a lot of people. And you don't want to become desensitized, if you're a police officer or firefighter, all those kind of jobs that you really are helping the public. You don't want to be desensitized to what you do, but at the same time, you want to be realistic and you want to make sure that you are giving the proper time to your own life, because at the end of the day, if you leave, you quit, they fire you, you pass away, God forbid, like all of these other things, they're going to move on almost like you weren't there.
Yeah.
What's your experience around that?
Well, for me, I started off my adulthood in the Army, and I did just short of 6 years. So I got out, I was still in my early 20s, and I was lost. I really had no idea what I wanted to do. Now, I'm coming out of the signals intelligence. Now, you would think about that now. You'd say, oh, well, you would have all kind of jobs, because of your clearance and being in intelligence. You would have all kind of job opportunities coming out. But you also got to understand this was prior to 9/11. This was during the time when, you told people you were in the military, and people would always bring up the joke, oh, what happened? The judge said you got to go to the Army or go to jail or something like that. And, so the level of respect for people in the military wasn't near what it was after 9/11. And so I got out and I was just kind of lost, and I floated between a few different jobs, doing a few different things. I tried car sales because my father was in sales my whole life. And so I was figuring, let me try that. And I did just a whole bunch of different things. I got back into telecom with the help of a good friend of mine, and working at Bell Atlantic. And while doing that, my wife at the time got pregnant with our first child. And now I felt this heat because here we are living in this tiny apartment in kind of a low income area. And I said, I want better than that for my kids. And so I started working like crazy. So when I was out working for Bell Atlantic, I met another friend of mine who was working at Cable TV Montgomery. And so what we would do was in the evenings, I would help him do work on cable TV. And then on the weekends, we would either work with Cable TV Montgomery, this was in Maryland, by the way, or we would just drive around and do installs at people's houses, install telephone lines and cable jacks and all that different kind of stuff in people's houses. And so it was basically working 7 days a week. And I felt like this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm a man about to have a child. This is what I'm supposed to do. And it was really tough because every 2 weeks, it seemed like like clockwork, my body would just shut down and I would sleep that whole day. And then the next day I'd get up and I'd be back to hustling, back to grinding and everything. And I felt like this is what I need to do until I get to a point where I don't need to do this anymore. And I remember I was doing an install at this gentleman's house, and he was probably 10 years older than me at least. And we got into a conversation about work, and I was telling him what I was doing. And he said, "You'll never make it." And I said, "What do you mean? I'm working hard. I'm doing it." He said, when you work 3 jobs like that, you never put in the time at any of them in order to get a level of either expertise where you can become a subject matter expert, or to endear yourself to others there so that you can get into management. And so you're going to have to pick one, let the other ones go, and figure it out from there. And that was a really tough pill to swallow because, like I said, I'm still in my 20s,
Right.
and you're just thinking, I just need to grind. I need to grind. But once I did, and I remember telling my wife at the time, I said, I have to stop. I'm going to concentrate on, Bell Atlantic. And soon after that, luckily, my best friend, who actually was the one who got me into Bell Atlantic, helped me to get into WorldCom. And so I moved from doing what we would call dial tone over onto the fiber optic side. And this was in the late 90s when fiber optics was just exploding. I mean, we couldn't put down fiber infrastructure fast enough. It was ridiculous. And it was work where I made probably 30% more than I was making at Bell Atlantic. But the other piece to that was it was unlimited overtime. And so because of that unlimited overtime, I was working all the time,
Right.
Going in at 7 o'clock in the morning, sometimes 6 o'clock in the morning, and leaving there at 9, 10 o'clock at night. And you're just working. You're just saying, hey, I'm trying to get that time and a half. And then, holidays would come, you're getting double time and a half. And it was like, you're just thinking that this is what you're supposed to do. Now, around this time was my second child came, and he had a lot of medical issues. And so there was a lot of time of working like crazy and then going back and forth to the hospital and everything. By the time he had gotten out of the hospital and was a lot more stable, I had started to work at Cable and Wireless. And Cable and Wireless, I was one of the tier 3s for the worldwide fiber optic network of Cable and Wireless. And with that, I was on call 24/7, 365, working like crazy. And I missed, some birthday parties. I remember it was either his second or third birthday party, I think it was, where in the middle of the party, my pager went off and I had to get on a plane and fly out to Denver to fix this circuit. And it's just, but I felt like as a man, these are the things that I'm supposed to do. And you also feel like, well, at some point, I'm not going to have to do this anymore.
Right.
But as I look back, I can't get that time back. All that time that I missed with my kids and all of that time that I could have been getting myself together, I missed because I enjoyed what I was doing, and I used that as kind of a way to, it was kind of my getaway. And that's where I kind of messed things up. And I remember I was also big into video games and stuff like that. And some people have probably heard this type of reference before, but when you're playing video games, Mortal Kombat, a lot of these kind of things, you have this slider when you're building the character. And you can say, okay, well, I want this character to be strong. Well, now that character is strong, but he's also slower. And you say, okay, well, so you're moving back and forth. And you say, well, I want this character to have speed. But then the character may not have the stamina. And so it's like they have quick bursts of speed. And so you start to look at that in terms of life and say, if I am going 100% into one thing, imagine everything else that's falling by the wayside.
Right.
And so for me, that was the piece that kind of, and it took years to happen. It wasn't like an immediate thing, but I'd started to slowly pull myself back and say, okay, I can't keep doing that. Now, when I look at what you went through, I think part of the piece that you may have missed talking about is the fact that you're an empath. And I think that for you, a lot of your working had to do with, I need to help these kids, because you get so invested into these kids, into their personalities and all the different things that they need from an educational perspective. But why did you miss talking about that?
I don't know. It's true. I like to be there 100%, probably 110% for my students and the families. I just felt like that's my role in life as a person. I'm supposed to be there for other people. I'm supposed to give. I'm supposed to just give and give until things are perfect, to be honest with you. I mean, even prior to working in education, I worked in the fashion industry. I worked for Contempo Casuals, Miss Contempo Casuals. It died a long time ago, but that was an amazing store out here. Well, I think it actually was across the United States. It was very popular here. And I was an associate buyer, and we would work until midnight there too, crunching numbers, trying to get things done. It was very stressful, extremely stressful, but I felt, this is what I need to do. This is what I'm supposed to do. This is what working looks like. This is what success looks like. Working hard. You have to work that hard to get, promoted, to be seen, to be recognized, to do a good job. I really felt that was the position that I needed to be in. And then when I moved from fashion, which I don't feel like is very much a giving job in terms of helping people, into education, then of course, like, how do you look at these little faces that need you so much, right? I wanted them to love school, have a great experience, learn as much as possible. That was my dream. And especially when I moved from an affluent area to an area that needed a lot more support. I thought the only difference between those two areas is just the effort that maybe the people around the kids, put into their lives. And so I'm one of those people. I'm thinking, as a teacher, I can do this. I can pull you up to this level and beyond. And I'm going to do whatever it takes to do that, which it takes a lot. And so,
but you've been successful with that with some kids.
I have been successful with that. And with me growing in this area where I'm pulling back from giving so much of my time and energy, it is hard because I'm feeling like I'm not going to be as successful and the kids are not going to be successful. But I also have to think about how it's not just me that's changed. Everyone has kind of changed.
Yeah.
And lately putting in that kind of work and effort is not seeing the results.
Yes.
Because everyone's not putting in that effort. And so it's time to take a look at that and see the impact it's making on myself. I mean, I'm getting older, I have more responsibilities here at home. And then also I'm worried about hindering people. Like I'm helping so much that they're not helping themselves.
Yes.
And that's an area of growth for me too, where I'm like, okay, it's time to pull back a little bit. I can give you the tools and the information, but you really need to do something with it. I think for a bit I was overstepping how much it worked. It did work when you had kids and families who grasped onto that and ran with it. But I think everyone is just, I don't want to blame it on any one thing that's happened in society, but there's definitely a difference.
Yes. And
putting that much effort without the other pieces putting in the effort too it's probably going to shorten your life. I mean, a lot of times teachers retire and they get sick.
Yes.
They've been holding all that in and they don't get to enjoy the rest of their lives because of the amount of time and effort and stress and everything else emotionally, mentally, physically that they've put into that job. And I feel that, while I still love the job and I still want to give 100%, there has to be a cutoff.
But let me ask you this, because I've seen how hard you work. Have you ever felt like you worked to a point where you were actually less productive because of how much you worked and how little you rested and took time for yourself?
Yes. I don't know if I felt that way over, within the school year, but over time, right? Like I'm moving into my third decade of doing this. And then, yes, I absolutely see that where it's just, I'm burned out. I am burned out at working that much. I mean, I joined every committee. I was available for every single thing that went on. I tried to bring things to the school that are lacking, ideas and clubs and all kinds of things. And when I think about over the years, all the things that I've done and quite a few group of us at the school that would do these things. And I loved it while I was in it at the time, but I definitely burned myself out doing that. There was not that, work-life balance, as they say.
Yeah.
And I'm a little bit tired now, right? So I want to give the time that I'm supposed to give contractually. And there are certain things that I want to do that go beyond. Like I've always wanted to start a choir. Like that's something I still really want to do. But I cannot join every single club. I can't be every single thing to every single person. I still really do believe in giving my phone number to parents so that I'm available to help them with homework and stuff like that. But I feel like as time has gone on, people aren't even using it the way they used to. I mean, kids and parents will call me and be like, I need some help.
Right.
And I would give them that help. But that's not happening anymore where I'm getting families reaching out as much. But I still like to make sure that I am there for them to a certain extent without taking away from you. And I think the first year that we were together, you kind of listened to me talk about my class and students until midnight, literally. And then the second year, you were kind of like, okay, maybe turn this off at a certain time. And at first that was hard because I'm really used to just going all night, making myself available all hours of the night. And at first I was kind of like resenting it, like, wait a minute, this is what I do. This is who I am. What do you mean? But I understand that we have different work schedules. Your day is done sooner than mine is. Like teaching, yes, we're done at 3 physically, on the campus, but it continues
Yes.
when you get home. This is when you do your phone calls, you're looking at homework or classwork and all of that. And, I have to be more efficient
Yeah.
in order to make sure I have time for my family and for myself, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Right? Because I really let myself go because I was too burnt out. I've spent all my time at work. So by the time I come home, it's late and I don't have any time or energy for myself.
So that kind of begs the question. Do you feel like there were times that work for you was an escape from things that you needed to do for yourself? That it gave you an excuse not to do certain things?
You've asked me this before. I don't feel like it was trying to escape from doing things for myself, but it definitely was escape from certain things going on in my life that whether it was, home life, because I lived at home with my mom for a long time up until 32. I stayed at home, because of things that were happening at home with her ex-husband, and I felt like I needed to be there, to just stay safe and for my own mental health. So with that said, it did impact things that I could have done for myself, but I wasn't trying to per se avoid things for me. It was more like I'm avoiding all of these things that I need to do maybe for other people. By the time it came time to do things for myself, I was too tired. Right. I was too exhausted. So I just want to lay around or sleep, or now then, enters social media. Yeah. So that became a big, huge thing. But I know that I've grown a lot from that to where I am now, where I feel like, okay, I'm going to get there in enough time, early enough to do some things in the morning, maybe a little bit early, nothing excessive. And that maybe once a week I might stay a little bit later, or maybe there's times in the year we'll have to stay a little later because it requires more report cards, things like that, prepping for open house. But I'm not going to just do that every single day and spend all my weekends doing that. I don't think in the end, we all get the same thing, especially in this profession. We're all going to get the same amount of pay. We're all, there's a cap on it. You're not going to be able to make more unless you work more hours, which again, you're giving more up of your own personal time. I just don't think it's worth it to, no matter what the job is, I think it's not worth it to miss out on your friends or having your best energy in your relationship, or even just for yourself. Yeah. Having the energy to take care of yourself, to even sit still. Yeah. Your body is recognizing everything you're doing to it, everything that it's experiencing. Absolutely. And sometimes it doesn't hit you till later. Yes. The minute you stop, like I said before, when teachers stop, that's when a lot of times a lot of the health issues hit them. Yeah. And so I'm trying to, I know it's much later in life and I'm, closer to retirement than I am, than the other side of it, but I still think it would be beneficial. And I hope a lot of people out there realize that, your job, it's important, right? Yes. You went to school for it possibly, or you studied for it in some way, certificated, and you care about what you do. Yep. And you want to make money and you need to make a living, but you also don't want it to define who you are. And I think even for males, it's even a bigger deal, like you were saying earlier, that I'm a man, this is what I'm supposed to do. Yes. Right? And we're always hearing about women who work a lot. We tend to say, oh, you're independent and you're this and that, but don't you want to live a soft life? Well, who doesn't want to be soft? Who doesn't want to have a soft life sometimes, right? Men don't want to have to work 24/7 and not be able to relax as well and enjoy as well. Like, I don't think that narrative should be pushed on anyone. Like, we all should have this balance. I mean, no one should miss out, especially if you have children. If you decide to have children, you should be there for them. Being there for them is not just making money. You should, but it's really hard to, and the word I can't stand is balance, but it's hard. It is hard to strike that balance because, some of it, I would have to admit, is ego, because you are ambitious and you want to do these things, and your reasoning is, of course, well, the more I do and the better I am at my job, the more money I'll have to take care of my family. And that's not really true, but it's one of the reasons why you do that. And
for me, I think I did a very poor job in my younger years doing that. In the early 2000s, when my first wife and I separated, it was really tough because I had just started a new job. I was still in telecom, but I was getting to a point where I didn't really enjoy telecom anymore. The career that I loved so much, I didn't feel it anymore. And I was going through a bit of a depression. Well, not a bit of it. It was a depression. No two ways about it, because I couldn't figure out how am I going to take care of my kids. So I ended up getting an apartment less than 2 miles away from the townhouse that I owned so that I could pick my kids up from school every day. And I would pick them up every day and I would help them with their work and everything and feed them dinner. And I would, drop them off sometimes 8:30 in the evening. And then I would spend all day Saturday with them because I wanted to make sure that my kids knew that I was going to be there. But there again, I still wasn't working on me. I was either trying to make sure my kids were okay or I was working. And so I didn't take that time. And luckily, a good friend of mine, I can't even call him a friend, he's a brother. He would come by and say, this isn't sustainable. What you're doing right now isn't sustainable. Your heart's in the right place, but you can't keep this going. Mm. And so I was able to get myself out of telecom, and that's how I ended up in cybersecurity. What I really wanted to do was make sure that I was spending more time with my kids, and I did spend more time with my kids. I still wasn't, I don't know if the quality of the time was the greatest, because we did go out and, we would go to the movies and we'd hang out and we'd play games, and I took them to a lot of their practices and all those different types of things, but I wasn't spending time actually working on me and talking to them about life and stuff like that. It was different, but it's one of those things that as young adults, and this is men or women, you just have to realize that all that time that you don't spend with your kids, you're never getting that back. Mm-hmm. And that the time that you do spend with them, you need to actually be there. Because a lot of times when I would take them to the movies, I would be sitting there in the movie and I'm thinking about something in my job and stuff like that. Right. So I wasn't all the way there. Right. And I really messed that up in a lot of ways. And it's something that I'm a whole lot better at, but I would never say that I'm good at it. Right. If that makes any sense.
Right. And something you're saying, I understand that everyone has a different situation. There's some people who absolutely need to work quite a bit in order to just survive. The one thing I would say, an area of growth that I think, especially in our community could use is with what money you are making, try to really make that money work for you instead of you just working for it. Mm-hmm. Meaning invest, even if it's just a little bit, save it, put some away, especially in your younger years. As hard as it is to not want some of the fancy things, the car, the name brand bags, the hair, the nails, all those things, if you know, unless you're making quite a bit of money and it doesn't make a dip when you buy those things, try to put that aside. I wish I had done that younger, and that's without having kids in a whole family. One of my really good friends from childhood, her daughter just recently had like 100,000 party or something, right? That I saw on Instagram, and she just celebrated saving her first $100,000, and she's in her early 30s.
Yes,
that is the way to go, people. Like investing that money, keep your debt down, save that money young. Make that money young so that you can retire early and really live. Yes. Don't make it, and she doesn't deprive herself, like from what I see. I mean,
no, she's not deprived.
Right? She's going out and having a good time, traveling the world and all that, but just managing her money and not having her money manage her. And I think that's a growth mindset that she had that really young. I mean, I wish I had that at that age. Everyone tells you if you start saving at 20, by the time but you don't believe it, or you don't do it, or you say I don't have time, or you say you don't have the money, save that 10% of whatever you get. Just do it. Just don't make work your life. Don't make chasing that dollar your entire life. You will regret it. You will miss out on so many things, and you won't be able to get that time back. Now, I'm not saying that, I'm 54 now, that life's over. Oh, well, I screwed up. I got to just count on this, retirement. I'm still at this point trying to save more money so that I can have the quality of life that I want in a few years. And so that I don't have to feel like I need to spend all this time chasing a job, putting my hours of my day into chasing a job instead of a quality of life. So I'm trying to make that money work for me. But I do wish I had done that earlier. And that would be my advice to younger people. Even if you don't make that much, just put some of it aside. Do not spend it all on things. You're going to have to change your mindset about that.
Yeah, I want to also put out a message to the older folks as well, because one of the major reasons why we do this podcast in the first place is to help people understand where our successes and failures have come from, and maybe we can spread a message that can help some younger people. What I talk to a lot of people my age, and everybody wants to talk about the younger generation as if they're not us. They are us. They are absolutely us. And I tell you, with my evolution as a man, as a father, as a friend, as everything, none of this would have been possible if it hadn't been for the constant mentors and a lot of times older people, and sometimes people my age, who would stop me and, hey man, let me give you a better way to do this. Okay, this ain't working for you. The guy who I call my brother to this day, I'm gonna say his name right on here, Robert Parnell. He's been grabbing me since I was 20 years old, since we were in the Army. Hey man, you may want to try it this way. I don't think this is sustainable. The way you're going right now is you may want to push it that way. But having people around you, and now that we're older, being able to reach to the younger folks and help them to understand that there is a better way. If you get all this knowledge and wisdom and you die with it, I just don't understand that. I don't get it. And I see this a lot in politics, where you have people dying in office. Why? Because they don't want to train the next generation. We have to take our lessons learned and push that as much as we can, as much as they'll listen to us. They're not always going to listen to us, but at least try to impart that on the next generation.
I agree.
So yeah, that's really all I have to say about that. But as we start to wrap up here, do you have any final words about, your growth as a teacher, or just professionally?
I would just say, make sure that you understand that your job, you take it seriously and you love what you do, whether it's teaching or whatever it is, but it is a way for you to sustain the rest of your life and put the most emphasis and time into the other parts of your life. Don't spend all your time at work. I think that's the biggest message I want to have, that I want to give, because that's what I'm walking away with. I love my time off in the summer and exploring other parts of myself, and I need to just do that even during the school year, and not just during these couple of months, because I'm going to regret it later on.
Yeah, it's important to remember that no matter how rich or poor you are, you've only got 24 hours in the day. And when you're spending your day doing a lot of things, just sometimes think about all the things that you're not doing.
Right.
Now, I know that's easy for me to say, and for some people, they do have to work like crazy. But just trying to figure out at what point you can start to, even if it may hurt you financially for a short time, how do you start to spend more time with your family and spend more time with yourself? Spend more time working on yourself.
Absolutely.
Because the more you work on yourself, the better you're going to be for everybody around you. And that's your job, that's your family, that's your friends, that's everybody. The more you work on yourself, the better you're going to be for everybody else.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for hanging out with us once again. And we appreciate you and your time. And again, please let us know if you have any thoughts on this. I know people have been sharing with me, dropping me messages on Facebook and Instagram and even texting me. If you don't have that access to us, please leave comments in the comment section of the platform that you're listening in. Once again, we appreciate you listening to us and being a part of our journey.
And we are out of here. This is Freddy.
And Tiffany.
Thank you so much for your time. Take care. See you next week.